Recording in progress.
I'm Mukti Prasetyani Suyahmun. I'm a lead advisor for market access at Catalyst.
Hi, I'm Keiko Nowacka. I'm a gender development specialist at the Asian Development Bank.
Hello, I'm Paul Bartlett and I'm the director of Catalyst.
Kegiatan kami dimulai pada tahun 2012 yang berawal dari sebuah keprihatinan secara pribadi untuk melihat anak-anak berkebutuhan khusus yang telah mendapatkan berbagai jenis intervensi, akan tetapi kemudian mereka mengalami kesulitan untuk melanjutkan ke jenjang pendidikan. Kami ingin menyediakan kesempatan bagi anak-anak berkebutuhan khusus untuk mendapatkan wadah mereka untuk belajar, memastikan bahwa hak mereka untuk belajar bisa terpenuhi sesuai dengan kebutuhannya. Apakah Bu Holly bisa ceritakan kepada kami apa yang menjadi latar belakang Bu Holly sehingga akhirnya Bu Holly ingin terjun sebagai inclusion advisor?
Thank you for asking me that. You know, my own mother suffered from hearing loss until she found the right hearing aid. And I witnessed firsthand how lives are changed with access to the right assistive technology. And in my line of work as a gender and social inclusion advisor, I believe what matters the most is the action we take.
Okay.
You know, when I first started exploring this topic from a bilateral trade angle between Indonesia and Australia, I quickly learned how timely and important it is to address the issues of availability and affordability of assistive technology. As you know, prices in Indonesia are much higher when compared to other Southeast Asian countries and even Australia. At Catalyst, we work hard to prove how increasing bilateral trade can contribute to closing the gap in assistive technology needs and shortages in medical professionals such as yourself, who can prescribe and fit assistive technology. We believe that commercial, innovative partnerships like the one being forged by Australian company Cochlear and Indonesian companies Kasum Group and Mitra Keluarga Kelapa Gading, and many more to come, are key to ensuring access to millions of Indonesians with disability and key to ensuring their access to assistive technology for millions of Indonesians with disability and unlocking their full potential.
Jadi kalau kita bicara tentang inklusivitas, kita perlu memastikan ketersediaan teknologi yang tepat untuk mendukung para individu dengan disabilitas tentunya. Nah, kenapa saya senang sekali pada waktu Katalis mengundang juga untuk berdiskusi pada bulan Februari yang lalu, dan di situ saya juga berbagi pengalaman saya baik itu di klinik Lidfood maupun di sekolah padi tentang berbagai kondisi dengan anak-anak dengan berbagai kondisi disabilitas.
Ibu Rini, thank you so much for having us here. Could you tell me a little bit about your vision for the future? What's next for Sekolah Padi?
Baik, jadi seperti visi yang kami miliki di Sekolah Padi, kami ingin menjadi institusi pendidikan bagi anak berkebutuhan khusus yang tentunya unggul secara kualitas bagi mereka untuk belajar, dibantu, dididik menjadi individu-individu yang mandiri kelak di kemudian hari. Tentu disertai dengan sarana belajar yang cukup baik, kemudian dengan teknologi yang handal, mumpuni, sehingga proses belajar dapat berlangsung secara efisien, kemudian tujuan dari pembelajaran juga dapat tercapai secara lebih optimal.
Wow, thank you. Inclusion is clearly the future. Terima kasih, Ibu Rini. Thank you so much for welcoming us to Sekolah Padi today. It's been a pleasure to meet you and your wonderful students. Thank you.
I'm Mukti Prasetyani Suyahmun. I'm a lead advisor for market access at Katalis.
Hi, I'm Keiko Novatska. I'm a gender development specialist at the Asian Development Bank.
Hello, I'm Paul Bartlett and I'm the director of Catalyst.
Abang tunjuk handuk, tunjuk sabun. Mana gambarnya? Pinter.
Kegiatan kami dimulai pada tahun 2012 yang berawal dari sebuah keprihatinan secara pribadi untuk melihat anak-anak berkebutuhan khusus yang telah mendapatkan berbagai jenis intervensi, akan tetapi kemudian mereka mengalami kesulitan untuk melanjutkan ke jenjang pendidikan. Kami ingin menyediakan kesempatan bagi anak-anak berkebutuhan khusus untuk mendapatkan wadah mereka untuk belajar, memastikan bahwa hak mereka untuk belajar bisa terpenuhi sesuai dengan kebutuhannya. Apakah Bu Holly bisa ceritakan kepada kami apa yang menjadi latar belakang Bu Holly sehingga akhirnya Bu Holly ingin terjun sebagai inclusion advisor?
Thank you for asking me that. You know, my own mother suffered from hearing loss until she found the right hearing aid. And I witnessed firsthand how lives are changed with access to the right assistive technology. And in my line of work as a gender and social inclusion advisor, I believe what matters the most is the action we take.
Okay.
You know, when I first started exploring this topic from a bilateral trade angle between Indonesia and Australia, I quickly learned how timely and important it is to address the issues of availability and affordability of assistive technology. As you know, prices in Indonesia are much higher when compared to other Southeast Asian countries and even Australia. At Catalyst, we work hard to prove how increasing bilateral trade can contribute to closing the gap in assistive technology needs and shortages in medical professionals such as yourself, who can prescribe and fit assistive technology. We believe that commercial, innovative partnerships like the one being forged by Australian company Cochlear and Indonesian companies Kasum Group and Mitra Keluarga Kelapa Gading, and many more to come, are key to ensuring access to millions of Indonesians with disability and key to ensuring their access to assistive technology for millions of Indonesians with disability and unlocking their full potential.
Jadi kalau kita bicara tentang inklusivitas, kita perlu memastikan ketersediaan teknologi yang tepat untuk mendukung para individu dengan disabilitas tentunya. Nah, kenapa saya senang sekali pada waktu Katalis mengundang juga untuk berdiskusi pada bulan Februari yang lalu, dan di situ saya juga berbagi pengalaman saya baik itu di klinik Lidput maupun di sekolah padi tentang berbagai kondisi dengan anak-anak dengan berbagai kondisi disabilitas.
Ibu Rini, thank you so much for having us here. Could you tell me a little bit about your vision for the future? What's next for Sekolah Padi?
Baik, jadi seperti visi yang kami miliki di Sekolah Padi, kami ingin menjadi institusi pendidikan bagi anak berkebutuhan khusus yang tentunya unggul secara kualitas bagi mereka untuk belajar, dibantu, dididik menjadi individu-individu yang mandiri kelak di kemudian hari. Tentu disertai dengan sarana belajar yang cukup baik, kemudian dengan teknologi yang handal, mumpuni, sehingga proses belajar dapat berlangsung secara efisien, kemudian tujuan dari pembelajaran juga dapat tercapai secara lebih optimal.
Wow, thank you. Inclusion is clearly the future. Terima kasih, Ibu Rini. Thank you so much for welcoming us to Sekolah Padi today. It's been a pleasure to meet you and your wonderful students. Thank you.
Hello, welcome everyone. Good morning to those of you that joined from Indonesia, and good afternoon to everyone in Australia. My name is Riani Laksono. I'm a trade economist with Catalyst, and I will be co-hosting today's webinar alongside my colleague Amanda Robbins. Thank you for joining us today to discuss the early childhood education and childcare, or ECEC, opportunities in Indonesia and Australia. It is so fantastic to have returning participants, but also warm welcome to those of you that join us for the first time today. This webinar is the final of the three being run by Catalyst in partnership with Equity Economics on the topic of care economy. Catalyst is an Australian and Indonesian government program that aims to strengthen economic ties between the two countries by bolstering trade, investment, market access, and skill development. To boost trade between the two countries, we are seeking to pioneer a new trade frontier, especially in the area of care economy where we discuss today. Today, we will have many excellent speakers discussing ECEC industry and market from various perspectives. We will start with brief presentation from my co-host, Amanda, to provide us with the context of today's discussion. Then we'll have two panel discussion sessions with our 5 experts. And we'll finish this webinar with a brief Q&A session with questions coming from the audience. We encourage you to use chat box throughout the session today to ask your question and share your comments. Our team will incorporate this as much as possible into the Q&A session. For those of you that need to use translation services, or to those of you that have other queries, please also use the chat box and our team will assist you promptly. Today's session is being live streamed and recorded and will be available on the Catalyst website and YouTube for sharing with others. Now, please welcome my co-host, Amanda Robbins, founder and director of Equity Economics with over 2 decades of experience in economic policy. Amanda has held senior positions in the Australian government, including the Federal Treasury, and had advised government across the Asia and Pacific regions. Amanda has worked with the World Bank at DC and working as also as a deputy director for the Australia-Indonesia Partnership for Economic Governance in Indonesia. Amanda, the Zoom is yours.
Terima kasih, Mas Riani, and selamat pagi semua. It's wonderful to be here again for the third of our webinar series that Catalyst has hosted on the care economy. It's an important topic, and I can only encourage those who haven't been part of the earlier 2 webinars to take a look at the Catalyst website for links to the initial webinars on aged care and healthcare, 2 other major sectors of the care economy, and the interesting discussion on the bilateral opportunities that exist between Indonesia and Australia in those sectors. But today, of course, we're focusing on the bilateral opportunities in childhood, early childhood education and care. So we'll go to the next slide. And I just wanted to run through a quick overview of what we're talking about today, the context for this discussion, and why we might be talking about it before we really hear from the experts in our 5 panelists today. So really quickly, what is the care economy? Well, it's a broad definition that we're adopting here. And to take the Value for Women's definition, it's the production of goods and services necessary for the physical, social, mental, and emotional well-being of both care-dependent groups and healthy working adults. That includes almost all of us. But of course, we're really focused on the important workforce, which is a predominantly female workforce, that are really providing direct care, care-enabling activities, care-adjacent and care-friendly businesses and enterprises. Some of those groups which you will be familiar with are obviously children, which we're really focusing on today and meeting their care needs. But we've also discussed the elderly, people with chronic illness, and people with a disability as part of this broad understanding of the care economy. It's a critical way as a group of economists and reflecting the broad trade opportunities that exist between Indonesia and Australia. The care economy is a new way to think about bilateral relationships, but as we'll hear today, it's an important one with huge economic and social potential. So we'll go to the next slide, because we also want to quickly clarify, what do we mean by early childhood education and care as a sector? And lots of this audience will be really familiar with the sector because many of you work in it, and certainly our panelists are experts in this field. But just so we quickly cover off what the scope of the conversation is today, again, it's quite broad. When we talk about ECEC, we're really talking about educational and caregiving services provided to children typically from birth to around 6 years old, but before the commencement of formal education. And for all of us, that can mean many different things. We know from our own experiences of what that was like, early learning, but also what the changing and emerging markets look like for different services that are being offered for ECEC. It can improve program and services, but we're really looking for that holistic development that maximises what we know the evidence now shows of the importance of early learning to child wellbeing and long-term educational and life outcomes. Some of the settings we'll talk about today and some of our panellists draw from are both preschools, nurseries, childcare centres, family daycare and home-based care arrangements, which we know is still a critical part of the childcare sector, particularly in Indonesia. ECEC services are largely delivered through a mix of profit and non-profit childcare centres and preschools, and we'll talk a little bit about the differences and some of the similarities between Australia and Indonesia's childcare markets. Worldwide, we know that ECEC sector is a collaboration between public and private sectors, and we also know the emerging evidence of the critical importance of investment in these early years. And it's why we want to talk about how Australia and Indonesia can work together on exploring and building those opportunities. So my next slide is really a little bit further of why bilateral trade and the care economy, but in particular childcare. When we go into trade negotiations, those of you who come from a trade background versus the ECEC sector in the audience will know that the care economy hasn't typically been first and foremost on the trade negotiation table. But the reason this is critically important is because we know what an important contribution to the economic outlook for both our economies, Indonesia and Australia, early learning and childcare has to play. Accessible, affordable and quality care is going to be important to unlocking the economic potential of Indonesia and the Asia-Pacific region more broadly. We also know that the market opportunity for childcare is rapidly growing with rising incomes, as well as changing social norms around both women in the workforce and economic participation, as well as caring roles and responsibilities. We also have the growing evidence of the importance of investing in this area. The other reason we're talking about this in terms of the bilateral trade relationship is both the Indonesian and Australian governments have committed to a deep economic partnership through the Indonesia-Australia Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which has existed for a number of years now, and it really is an opportunity to explore new and deep ways to work together to achieve mutually agreed and common outcomes, which we believe the care economy plays an important role in. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go into the opportunities that exist. So we'll go to the next slide and just quickly thinking about the Indonesian market, which many of you in the audience and certainly our panellists will be far more expert in than I am. But we know that there's an emerging ECEC market in Indonesia and particularly in Java. We know that that's often in high-income families, but we're also seeing it in workplaces where different employers are seeing the need to attract the highest, most qualified female workforce, that they're needing to offer a range of child care and early learning educational opportunities to get the workforce that they need. The government of Indonesia is also investing in strengthening ECEC's quality and availability. So there's interest from the market, there's interest from government, and there's hopefully interest from business, which we'll explore today. There's still significant unmet demand in Indonesia for childcare facilities, and you'll see a briefing paper that was circulated prior to this for further data on just how much demand is out there and the economic and business opportunity that exists to invest in this area. We also know that investments required in both the regulatory environment for early ECEC in Indonesia, but also workforce development, which is something that Indonesia has in common with Australia. So let's take a little look at the Australian market, which is quite different in terms of stage of development of the ECEC market, stage of regulation, funding, as well as the demand and market expectation for early learning and education. If we can go to the next slide. Australia's market is a highly developed, back one, thank you, market where 50% of children under 5 are actually in subsidised childcare in Australia, and actually rises to close to 70% when you look at the 2 to 4 age bracket. The market for childcare and early childhood education is really well established, and it's made up of many childcare providers across the country. Australia is a world leading in ECEC sector, and it's why we'd love to work with Indonesia to try and share lessons and explore the future of what the markets may look like, where they can be complementary and mutually beneficial. Industry revenue is rapidly growing, so it's also a market for where there is huge investment and funding, and it is expected to grow to over 17 billion this year. as I mentioned on Indonesia, there is a huge skilled labour shortage, which means there's also potential for workforce opportunities for Australia and Indonesia in childcare markets. We'll go to the next slide, which is really to try and plant the seed for the discussion today around what are these bilateral opportunities. It's often pretty easy to think about, well, in traditional trading sectors like mining, agriculture, manufacturing, we can see some complementarities between Australia and Indonesia. It's not as common that we think about childcare. But an easy comparison that is worth thinking about and why we see a huge opportunity here is that education is a major trade and export service between Australia and Indonesia. It's currently valued at over $1 billion in terms of international education. So if Australia and Indonesia can have a great trading relationship in our international education sector, largely in terms of higher education, we think that it's an example of what may be possible in terms of early education. So there's a strong standard and a strong example of what is possible in this sector. There's also a strong and rising demand in both countries for ECEC services. There's also currently no restrictions on foreign investment in this sector. And that means it's a particular sector where there is opportunities for Australian and Indonesian businesses to collaborate and partner and invest in ECEC in Indonesia. One area we thought we'd flag is franchise opportunities. It is something that you can see existing and already beginning to happen in Indonesia and in Australia, where established high quality and accessible products are being franchised in early learning and ECE sector. And there's an opportunity to potentially explore whether that could be an export to both markets. In the same way, EdTech, a huge sector, particularly with leadership from Indonesia, whether there's opportunities for that technology from Indonesia to be shared with Australia and vice versa in the ECEC sector. There's potential for mutually beneficial workforce training modules to complement both workforce shortage needs in the ECE sector in both countries. So we're just flagging a few ideas that we'd really love to explore today. We'd love to hear your questions for the panellists and ideas as well on the bilateral opportunity. But without further ado, let's go to our panellists and hear more from the experts.
Thank you for such an enlightening presentation, Amanda. With growing demand yet lack of supply, especially as you say, the long day services, certainly there is a large room for productive collaboration between Indonesia and Australia in this sector through trade and investment. For the next 30 minutes, we will have our first panel discussion on ECEC industry in Australia and Indonesia with our two speakers, Bapak Kenneth and Mary Ruth. Please welcome our first speaker, Kenneth Hartanto, founder and curriculum director of Nurture One Childcare. With a passion for early childhood education and business development, Kenneth is dedicated to creating enriching experiences for children through Nurture One Childcare, which he founded in Indonesia in July 2021. Prior to this, Kenneth was an education consultant at Fortress Education Service in Melbourne, Australia, and an early childhood educator at the Early Learning Center of Oxley Kids, Explore Early Learning, and Oak Park Children's Center. Over to you, Kenneth.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kenneth, and I am the CEO of Nurture One Learning Center, an integrated learning center based in Jakarta and Tangerang. Next slide, please. So our journey began in July 2021 when we opened our first branch in Muara Karang, North Jakarta, as Nurture One Childcare. So from the outset, we recognized the importance of offering more than just childcare. We observe a significant need for an integrated learning approach that includes not only childcare, but also kinder program and tutoring services to help children in developing their academic skills for school readiness. In response, within the next 6 months, we launched both Nurture One Bimbel and Nurture One Kinder. And fast forward to September 2023, when we expanded our reach by opening our second branch in Suparnasutra, Tangerang. And this expansion was a part of our commitment to providing a learning center that cater to the comprehensive development of children. So currently we have around 70 children actively enrolled in our programs across both of our branches. And to support our operations and provide quality care, we employ a dedicated team of around 15 staff members, including teachers, caregiver, administrators, and center directors. So looking ahead, we are excited to announce our plans to open several more branches in Gading Serpong, in BSD, and also some parts of West Jakarta. These new locations will enable us to serve even more families and continue our mission of nurturing young minds through a balanced and holistic educational approach. Next slide, please. So at Nurture One Learning Center, we employ unique programs and approaches in childcare and early education. We use the Early Years Learning Framework, EYLF, as our main educational framework. It encompasses 5 key learning outcomes. And this framework ensures that children experience a sense of belonging, being, and becoming, which are essential for their overall development. And furthermore, we incorporate developmental milestones authorized by the Australian Children Education and Care Quality Authority into our programs to ensure that each child's growth and development is closely monitored. Next slide. So these are the 5 main areas of developmental milestones that we use to monitor each child's development. Okay, next slide, please. So we serve a broad spectrum of families, including working parents, single parents, and those who require quality childcare services for children aged 0 to birth to 5 years old. So, and for our bimbel and tuitions, we cater to children up to grade 6. And in our area, we noticed that there's a strong and growing demand for childcare services, driven by an increasing number of dual income households and a heightened awareness of the importance of early childhood education. Next slide, please. So for our future outlook, the first one is expansion. So one of our primary goals is to expand our reach by opening more centers in different locations within Jakarta and both Jakarta and Tangerang, and also including different cities. This expansion will allow us to provide quality care to a broader community. The second one is our integration focus. So we aim to enhance the integration between our childcare services, our kindergarten program, and also our tutoring sessions. So by creating a seamless and cohesive learning environment, we can better support children's development across various domains. This integrated approach ensures that children receive consistent, comprehensive education that nurtures both their academic skills as well as their 21st century skills, such as analytical thinking, creativity, curiosity, collaboration, social skills, soft skills, and these kind of skills. And the third one is our future collaboration. While we currently do not have a formal collaborations, we are exploring opportunities for future partnership with educational institutions and organizations in both Australia and Indonesia. This collaboration, I believe, will help us to incorporate best practices, training and partnership, innovative teaching methods, and new resources into our programs. The last one is to explore new educational areas. So in the near future, we plan to explore new areas within the education realm that can provide better learning experience for our children. This includes adopting the latest educational technologies, providing therapy services to support children with developmental challenges within our center, innovative teaching method, programs that focus on holistic child development. So by staying at the forefront of educational advancement, we aim to continually enhance the quality of education and care that we provide to our children. I think that's the last slide. Yep, thank you.
Thanks so much, Kenneth. It's fascinating to hear the demographics of who Nurture One are currently connecting with, and really interested to hear more about, as we get into the discussion, what you see as the future of the sector in Indonesia. But thank you for that briefing. It's really been wonderful to hear. Our next speaker, Mary Ruth Mendel, is the co-founder, co-chair, and an executive director of the Australian Literacy and Numeracy Foundation. It's a charity that Mary Ruth established with Kim Kelly in 1999 to assist people in need of literacy support. Mary Ruth is an experienced speech pathologist with over 40 years of experience, including running the private practice, the Speech, Language and Literacy Centre. Mary Ruth actually led the development of the Early Language and Literacy Development Index and is currently championing this instrument's development in Australia and internationally. Mary Ruth, we're really looking forward to hearing more about this. Over to you.
Oh, thank you very much. That was a warm welcome. And let me thank you all for inviting me here today to talk about something that's very dear to my heart. And you can see it here on the screen. The first is the ELDI, the Early Language and Literacy Development Index. We call the ELDI. It's a formative assessment and it belongs in the Early Language and Literacy Program, which is a nationally accredited program. The two can go together or the ELDI can stand alone. We are a charity and we're a charity that works in all over Australia. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see that we believe that literacy is freedom. We see a world where everyone, wherever they come from, however they identify, can confidently express themselves, engage with society and share their stories, embracing the extraordinary opportunities that life brings. And from what I was hearing this morning in the introductions, we share that. Children are our nation's future. We want to get them off to a good start, a strong start, and have their education be something that's really useful to them. Go to the next slide for me, and we'll have a look at the 6 programs that ALNF offers. It's the first one that we'll focus on today. It's the Early Language and Literacy, ELNL and ELDI, and as a definition, they both address the importance of preparing children early, even birth 3 to 5 years of age, starting very early from birth though, with rich oral language and early literacy experiences so that they are ready to transition into school and to have a really strong formal literacy and learning experience in their schooling years, right up to high school. It starts in the years before school, and that's where they get their strength to have a powerhouse of an education as they go through their schooling. Let's go to the next slide. So you'll see here that the Early Language and Literacy Program is actually about building capacity in the people who are local, who are the safe hands around the children in the services where you are. We build capacity in those local people, and we do it to break this transgenerational cycle of illiteracy and to break through the disadvantage that so often occurs in certainly marginalised communities in Australia and all over the world. By increasing knowledge and skills, community members, parents and local educators can implement and work with their own children in oral language and early literacy development. That means that children are then able to participate in pre-literacy activities. And that's something that if we go to the next slide, I can explain to you. It's something that builds children's capacity so that they have the developmental strength, neurological developmental strength, to actually transition into school with really strong development behind them. Because we have the ELDI, we know that ELNL is working for children. We know that what adults are doing for children is accelerating their growth. 94% of children that we use the ELDI with show that growth. This is where the evidence comes that investing in professional development in the grown-ups in the sites is actually translating into really strong growth for children. Go to the next slide. And we'll see what's contained in the Early Language and Literacy Program. Yes, I said it was just one more slide done. Yes, it's nationally accredited. There's a certificate for. And you'll see if we go one more slide. Can you go for one more slide? There we go. You can see there the units of competency that are in the training package. So these are the pre-literacy oral language developmental skills that children must have in order to become fluent readers, speakers, listeners, readers, writers, and comprehenders. And you'll see there, just like Kenneth was saying, that quality programs in Australia and around the world actually address standards. And so the ELNL actually does align with the Australian National Quality Standards, the EYLF and the Victorian version, as Kenneth was mentioning, and the AEDC and the Australian National Literacy Learning Progressions. And this is important when we talk about transferring skills from site to site. It has to be quality and it has to be transferable. Go to the next slide for me. So here is the LD. This is the formative assessment that we use. We call them interviews, not assessments, not tests for children. There's a reason for that too. It's world first. It's a digital platform. It has a scale for 2-year-olds through to 5-year-olds, which is the world first part, and it goes up to 8-year-olds. We won the World Summit Awards this year for digital technology to address the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and it is seen as something very special. This is a tool that is in the hands of the educators, in the local people. You don't need to bring in specialists to do that. I'm a speech and language pathologist, but those tests take hours. This is a quick little window into children's development. It will give you quality assessment feedback. It has a progression scale so you can see children's growth in little incremental steps. It has a library full of tips and ideas for educators. It has a common language, so you can be talking about children with family and other educators. So you really start to build capacity and knowledge amongst yourselves about how to improve children's learning growth. It's statistically reliable. And as I say, we're an international winner of the World Summit Awards. Going through to the next slide, and there's a picture there that shows you somebody, Ilona, doing an LD interview with a little tot. She's about 3. So the child experiences looking at real things, reading a real book, looking at real pictures. So they're looking at real items. It's the educator who is putting those results into the computer, and it's across those 7 domains. And you'll see how they're quite similar to the units of competency early language and literacy program. Go to the next slide and you can see the type of feedback you get. So it's real-time feedback. You put the results in, tap, tap, like Alona was, and up comes real-time feedback for the child. Shows us strengths and challenges. It tells us where the child's at, and it's got the library attached to every child's feedback. Will be, here's what you do with this child over these 7 subdomains. Here are 1,000 activities to do. So we want all children to be having fun whilst they're doing all of this really targeted, focused learning. But we want the adults to be really targeted and focused in their intention when they're playing and talking and having conversations, reading storybooks with children, building up that oral language and early literacy capacity. If you go to the next slide, the whole reason that we have the early language and literacy program and the LD is so that we have grown-ups who are well-informed, evidence-informed. It's not a guess, it's evidence-informed. And they can reflect on their practice, what they're doing with children. They can make changes, change it up, make it different, but it's going to suit each child's developmental needs. We're all about supporting children's growth. And if I could just you could just bear with me, we're going to turn on a little video that will give you a little demonstration of what the LD is all about and why we want to use it. So share it with you in Australia and in Indonesia for your children as well. Go to the next video. Next slide with the video on it.
The first 1,000 days of a child's life lay the foundation for their future learning. These are days filled with curiosity, growth, and boundless potential. Yet not all learning journeys tread the same path. Whether a child is taking confident strides or still finding their pace, all learners should have a chance to shine at their brightest. Meet LD, a world-first platform designed to unlock every child's learning potential. Featuring a robust set of engaging challenges across 7 subdomains, it's uniquely designed to assess and nurture the capabilities of children between 2 and 8. At an age where each sound is a key to expression, each word a bridge to understanding, and every story a doorway to wonder, LD ignites a lifelong passion for learning. Through LD's platform, the caring hands around a child are empowered to observe their growth, receive timely feedback, address learning needs, and consistently monitor progress. LD is a testament to what's possible when technology meets purpose. We are here to ensure that every child's journey, no matter where they begin, leads to a horizon filled with brighter opportunities.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mary Ruth, for such a comprehensive take on Australian ECEC model, especially in terms of literacy and language. We're really hoping to learn more on this during our discussion and Q&A session. Now, let's go into our question session to our speaker. The first question I will go to Mary Ruth. So, having worked within the Australia's ECEC system for a long time, what do you think are the most transferable and beneficial aspects of Australia's ECEC models that could be applied to a developing country like Indonesia, which obviously is still at its early stage in developing its ECEC industry?
Yes, thank you. It's a really important question because we don't want to waste a second of children's precious growth time. So I do have a slide. If the team wanted to put that up, it's called question 1. I anticipated we might talk about this. So there are 3 really important factors. One is to make sure that the grown-ups around children, you'll see in the first bullet point, that there is quality and quality assurance. Now, ALNF did this by writing the Early Language and Literacy program into a vocational education training package. So it actually is all of those units of competency are actually defined and really well set out. That's your quality assurance. So if you're going to have a model, you need to have it a good quality model. The units of competency give a clear learning pathway. That means you can break things down so that those who are entry learners, who haven't done any advanced education, they can actually have badges of micro badges and have a pathway towards getting a certificate for. Or there's those who are more confident learners and they'll just bounce in and they'll do the full certificate for. So you want to have quality assurance, you want to have clear learning pathways, and you definitely want to have delivery modes that are flexible. We do training, but we have a lot of mentoring that happens too. You want to make sure that you're on site working with real educators and their children. You can be online so they can tap in and get some top-ups and refreshers. You want to be demonstrating. So it's just not learning on paper, it's learning with real children. You want lots of mentoring so that and we've made it so part of the training hours are actually mentoring. And you want to make sure that there are learning management systems so people can go, I've forgotten what she said. Let me check in on my learning management system. I'll go to the module on learning about speech sounds. Yes, that's right. I remember now. So lots of support for learners to be not just learning what to do, because that's important, but learning how to do it with children, having the confidence to go, I know what to do with this child. I've practiced it. We've rehearsed it together and I feel really confident. I know what to do. So ELNL actually is important, but the LD is where you as organisations, as administrators, as in jurisdictions, you know that there's quality work happening for children. We are not training the educators and the grown-ups for the sake of training them. Yes, we are. We want them to be the best they can be, but they're the grown-ups. We're doing that so that the children genuinely grow in oral language and early literacy so that they can go ahead and have, good educational experience. And the way we know that educators are being really engaged and effective with children is that the children are growing. the LD interviews can actually chart that growth. And that's where we know as a system that there's quality engagement and growth for children because of what the adults are doing. There we go.
Thanks so much, Mary Ruth. It's fascinating to hear about the LD tool, and I'm sure it's one that's Australian and Indonesians in the audience are thinking, how is this relevant to where we're at? I'd now like to put a question to our first panelist, Kenneth. You've worked in the ECE sector both in Australia and Indonesia, so you have a really unique perspective to share with us today. What do you think would need to be adapted for Indonesia and Australia to suit the cultural, regulatory, educational and stage of development of each market for each country? Sorry, Kenneth, we're on mute, I think. So if you could just turn your volume on, please.
Sorry about that. So yes, I did have a privilege of working in the early childhood education and care sector, both in Australia and Indonesia. And from my experience, I noticed that there's a significant difference between the two countries, primarily driven by cultural factors. So, and I believe these cultural factors influence parental expectation and the overall approach to early childhood education. So in Indonesia, influenced by Eastern culture, there's a strong emphasis on academic achievement from a very young age. So parents often expect their children to develop academic skills as early as possible to prepare for primary or preschool education. So we know that from the government, it is actually not allowed or not recommended to teach academic skills to children below the age of 5. But the fact is, there are many primary schools who require children to be well equipped in their ability to write, read, and count before they enter primary 1. So there's this huge dilemma for early childhood care providers. To on one hand, we want to follow the regulations and what we know is the best for the development of the children, but on the other hand, we know that this is the fact, this is the field, this is what we're required of from the primary schools. So I also had a client where this kind of expectation did lead to parents inquiring about programs for developing these skills for children as young as 6 months old. And on the other hand, Australia is influenced by Western culture. There's a greater emphasis on exploration, curiosity, analytical skills, questions, critical thinking, and academic skills are generally focused on later during kindergarten and more intensively in prep or foundation. So from my observation, the key challenge and opportunity lies in integrating these cultural models to create holistic and comprehensive learning programs for children. So one effective approach that we have been trying to implement in our childcare service is to implement play-based academic learning and such as pre-writing, pre-phonics, and pre-reading that can be developed through age-appropriate play-based activities. So an example of this integration is developing fine motor skills, which are essential for writing and future academic skills. So we can incorporate activities that enhance fine motor skill as early as 3 months old, laying the groundwork for future academic learning in a playful and engaging manner. So, and when parents are asking, do we help them develop their academic skills? We can teach them that, no, we cannot do that because it is definitely not age appropriate, but we can lay the foundation for these academic skills to develop later on when they are ready for kindergarten or even for foundation years. I think that's my answer.
Thank you, Pak Kenneth. That's a very fascinating answer. Clearly, there are gaps in what parents are looking for and what actually the age-appropriate education on that age. Unfortunately, we are so limited in terms of time, so we will gonna end this session and we will discuss more of this topic later on during our Q&A session. So let's join me to thank Mary Ruth and Kenneth for sharing their valuable expertise with us. We'll come back to you shortly with more questions.
Thanks so much for that fascinating discussion. We'll come back. We've got a few questions in the Q&A and in the chats, which are really fascinating. So we're definitely planning to respond to those in our final Q&A session. But first, let's hear from our second group of panelists who'll be examining the market investment potential for early childhood education and care, goods and services in Indonesia. It's worth noting that when we talk about trade, we're often talking about the trade in goods. And we're actually going to hear from a speaker that it's actually looking at products and goods that are related to children in our first speaker. And then we'll go into a broader discussion again about the services, including financial services and investments in early childhood education. So with that, I'd like to introduce our third speaker, Firdra Wanda Wijaya, the Senior Brand Manager at PT Goldemar, Indonesia. Firdra is responsible for Cetaphil, a product I know I use for my and is well-known sensitive skincare products that has a niche market in Indonesia and Australia. I'm hoping everyone can hear me clearly, so I'll hand over to Ibu Firdra to start with her presentation in case there's a delay. Over to you, Firdra.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Amanda. So yes, I want to share a glimpse of the Cetaphil baby in here because this is the one of the Cetaphil product for baby care. Please, next slide. So basically, this is a glimpse of my journey, basically from the design, communication, visual, and design, and then I go to trade marketing, and then I am I'm senior brand manager for Cetaphil, and in this case, in this brand, I do like the analysis for the Cetaphil baby. For the next slide, please. In here, I want to share about the analysis for the consumer behavior. We use like the computer-aided web interviewing actually with 400 moms with kids 0 to 24 months. So this is start from the newborn kids. Our target market, SES AD1 and user of baby products for the last 3 months, all of baby products. So in here, you can see like baby 2-in-1 wash, baby shampoo, baby oil, baby lotion, wash, cologne, diaper cream, and even powder. So in Indonesia, the behavior is the most used of baby care product is the 2-in-1 wash. In Indonesia, we call it like head-to-toe product. So it will be more practically for moms. And then about the SES for moms in upper class is more explorative, as you can see from the middle image, the image in the middle. So the upper class is more explorative. It's more like 6 to 7 brands for each category. And then for the middle class and lower class, almost the same, 5 to 6 categories that they explore in baby products. So, but when it comes to brand, so the middle, image, in the middle image is more like the category, but for the brands, average number of brands repurchased for per consumer is 5. So many brands for their baby products. So however, but while they're using so many products, so many brands for the baby care, the consumers might consider first about the product efficacy, and then they will use also the price for the price image for the brands. For the next slide. So in here, for Cetaphil baby product portfolio, our differentiation with the other for baby care is we are daily superior care for baby sensitive skin, as like the mentioned before. Like Cetaphil baby is for sensitive skin friendly. So we have this two segment. For the classic series, it's for both are for sensitive skin, but for the classic series is like for our daily usage for baby skin. But for the Calendula series, because it has the more soothing ingredients, so this is extra care for baby sensitive skin. So we want to own at least 1 to 2 categories that moms will buy for the baby care. So in here, we also own this sensitive skin moment for moms. So we can differentiate our brand or our products with other products or baby brands that offer the same categories. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Firda. Our next two speakers are from Swift Capital, Ibu Samantha Tejo Sugondo and Wendy Verji, where they will co-present. Samantha has over a decade of experience as a finance professional. Currently, as a VP, she is building Swift Capital's presence in Indonesia, as well as building deal pipelines, assessing and analyzing potential deals, and closely monitoring portfolio companies. Wendy is the Australia-New Zealand advisor for Swift Capital. She has over 30 years of experience working across funds management, superannuation, financial services, and innovation with prominent financial services firms. She is a board director, advisor, and mentor for a number of early-stage businesses with a focus on supporting new funds and entrepreneurs in the early to growth stage, and she advocates for greater diversity in the investment industry. The majority of her roles are in the care, gender equity, climate, and health sectors. Over to you, Ibu Samantha and Wendy.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for the opportunity today. I'm Samantha, Indonesia VP of Swift Capital. So Swift Capital is an impact PE firm founded in 2021 focused on women empowerment with our first fund called SWIFT, which stands for Southeast Asia Women's Economic Empowerment Fund. And as mentioned by Amanda in the beginning of the event, the webinar, so there's a lot of evidence consistently finds a positive relationship between women's participation in the labor force to unlock the economic potential in the region. So we empower women in 4 different perspectives. First, whether it's founded or led by women. Second, powered by women, meaning the workforce are mainly women. And third one, the products or services that cater women or mom and babies needs. And last, which cover the ECEC sector that we discussed today. And lastly, whether the founder or the business already demonstrated a commitment to gender equality. By employing these strategies, Swift Capital aims to deliver strong returns to investors while improving lives and livelihoods in the societies and communities in which it operates. Next slide, please. So we seek to invest equity or quasi-equity to provide expansion capital to small and mid-sized companies growing at 30 until 40% per annum in VIP countries, which are Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And ECEC has been our primary focus for our fund since day one, as our anchor LP PBU, a Danish pension fund for early childhood teachers and youth educators. Swift value align with the work at PBU, and it is the areas that many women work and create their businesses. As you can see here, ECEC has been part of our key sector focus, including 2 of our portfolio companies here, Techie and Philo. Techie is a leading STEAM academy in Vietnam, offering after-school programs for 5 to 18 years old with 17 centers in 5 major cities. In addition, Techie develops and operates an online learning platforms to deliver their programs to students in more remote provinces. And for food sector, we have Philo, is a leading packaged ice cream brand in Indonesia, which offer premium gelato ice cream by using fresh ingredients without any artificial coloring or preservatives. So the products are safe for children. And they also just launched the first veggie sorbet gelato, which include carrots and mandarin oranges, and also a mix of spinach, cucumber, and apple gelato. So we already see different types of business models in ECEC in our sectors. Next slide. So yeah, I think it's also mentioned by Kenneth previously and some speakers in the beginning. So there are some challenges of ECEC, but there are opportunities to capture in realizing the market potential. For example, in the quality of standards, there's this inconsistent standard of product or services of the education or maybe the products and also the care services as well. And there's a lack of proper training for these workers in those sectors, which I will maybe explain more about that. So maybe just over to you, Wendy. Next slide.
Thanks, Sammy.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. On this slide, you can see it's called our Gender ROI Matrix. Swift Capital has developed the Gender ROI with 24 metrics that can help you inform and drive gender equality change for businesses and investment firms alike. There's 24, so that can be quite a lot in the beginning. And we've worked with companies who start initially with around 6 to 7. And from there, then they can grow and add more and more of the metrics to measure. So most of the indicators touch on workplace participation and what is needed to address biases that exist for women in the workplace. The indicators are applied across the intersectionality of enterprise dimensions of leadership, workforce, value chains, and society, and the outcome pillars of resilience, opportunity, and inclusion. Action and interventions applied at the enterprise level are focused on delivering outcomes that support women's economic empowerment. We've also applied different thresholds for 3 types of enterprise sizes, so you can compare. So there's micro, small and medium, and then the large enterprises. We look at business indicators such as business ownership, senior, middle management representation, and implementing policies and practices that will support women. Gender wage equity is also another important facet for women's empowerment. We also evaluate gender lens in performance evaluation and progression, recruitment, professional development, networking and mentoring, supply and value chains. It is really important to note that we've incorporated indicators that address barriers women face as a result of gender norms in the workplace. Women turnover rate, which is one of the key measures to help diagnose this, it informs us as to why women are leaving the company and helps inform action to address retention issues. This is such as things as flexibility, allowing women to get out, to come to work a little bit later and go earlier just to pick up children from childcare so they don't get locked in. Things like that are really important here. This in turn helps formulate women workforce support policies that address responsibilities women take on with respect to unpaid care responsibilities. We have indicators with respect to women in part-time and temporary workforce as well, assessing parity in pay and their fair treatment. The 9 key metrics under the workforce listed there, these are the key ones on workforce participation. Next slide, please. So this is an example of a scorecard. As I said earlier, the 24 metrics are sometimes hard to address immediately, but this is one where we've got them all addressed. The metrics generate scores for basis of performance, and this gives you a baseline starting place, and then over time you can track your improvements. The qualitative indicators are measured through questions around commitment, communication, implementation, measurement, accountability, and transparency. These can be all pulled together into an impact report based on the company and how gender equality movement is moving. That's it from us. We'll hand that back. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Samantha and Wendy. It's fascinating to hear how advanced financing and capital is in terms of measuring and inclusion in terms of their financing and investment decisions. So thanks so much for that brief. We're now going to ask a few questions of these panelists. And the first one I'll put to Ibu Ira. With your experience in servicing a market of products focused on children, we're really interested to hear your advice to other ECE looking to enter the Indonesian market on how to attract investment. What's your studies of the demographics and the markets tell you that might be of value to those looking to enter the ECE?
Okay, thank you, Amanda. So basically, we found out in Indonesia that while purchasing about the baby care product, like in my previous slide, so moms in Indonesia especially is not loyal into one brand only. So while they spend money on baby products, for example, in here baby skincare, in my case, they can buy for average 5 brands in its and also, so when we have the baby skincare product, we need to define what we call its USP. So USP means like unique selling proposition with our products, and also can be with the service. And then we can make the strategy to own in products part 1 until 2 categories, so that moms will use our brand at least for 1 until 2 products. They will buy our brand for the kids, and then make sure that you own the basic needs for moms and the kids, especially for the crucial products for your consumer, something like that.
Thank you, Ibu Firda, for your answer. Now a question to Ibu Samantha. Samantha, Swift is clearly as an impact investment firm that use a gender lens to identify investment opportunities in the region. So why are you particularly looking at the EC businesses in Indonesia? What's the motivation behind it, and what are the business opportunities you see here?
Okay, I think there's one slide that I have, and the last slide. Yeah, here. So in Southeast Asia, mothers' thirst for caregiving knowledge drive consumer behavior in the baby and maternity space. So there's this recent survey found that 78% of Indonesian mothers turn to social media for parenting tips, and 50% use telemedicine apps for consultations. So, so there's this domestic demand for online baby and maternity products, and we can see here. So Indonesian baby and maternity market will reach a total addressable market of 3.8 billion by 2027. And it spreads across our sectors in healthcare, education, and food, as can be seen here. These are some of the companies that we are already watching since earlier. And I think the investment activities in these areas are also really growing, and it's a really attractive space for the investors for both Indonesia and other regions. So, and with a population of around 280 million, fertility rate of 2.3 children per woman, Indonesia is estimated to have added at least 2 million parents in 2022. And there's a research also shows that compared with the previous generation, middle-class millennials care more about kids' health and hygiene, and they buy more baby products. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that response. A final question for this panel to Wendy. We'd be really keen to hear your insights on the types of EC business models that are attracting the most investment and will be growing, that you see are the likely areas of growth in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, thank you very much. In Australia, we have really sort of started seeing a demand for diverse educational approaches in EC. And this is, I think, where we see most of the innovative startups building their businesses. Parents, we find today, have a better understanding of the diverse benefits and inclusive educational approaches that exist. So this is probably the strongest growth sector in the EC sector. It's still very young, but it's definitely growing. A few examples of the types of businesses that we've been seeing is one is a platform that informs and helps parents and educators on dealing with children with challenging behaviours. It's a database with evidence-based therapies that can really support the children. Support the parents and the children, both in their routines in early childcare and then also at home. So it merges the two together. The other business we're also seeing is a speech therapy business where it involves play and helps the educators work with the children to support their speech development. The other sector that we're seeing in this early stage is mainly because we still do have a shortage of childcare here, is a platform that matches you up with accredited carers and babysitters. But as far as sort of services that are really driving change, it's around the children's development that we're really seeing the innovations come through. On looking at childcare itself as an investment in Australia, we tend to see the larger organisations, the syndicates, are doing probably the best. The smaller ones do find it difficult on profitability, and that's because we have very high quality deliverables from a government regulation perspective, and then obviously operational costs and wages here are quite expensive. So it's a bit of a challenge, and it needs to be subsidised by government for parents to afford it. However, we are definitely seeing a greater focus from government and regulators around this to help really drive growth in this sector, as we have a shortage, and we need to make it more affordable for essential workers such as nurses and teachers so that they can go back to work. So those are sort of two key areas on the investment side. The only thing I'd like to probably note on that is that most of the founders in this sector are female, and with that comes significant hurdles on accessing capital, advisory and networks. But the conversation in Australia is definitely starting around that, and it's working with wonderful funds like SWEEF that are enabling us to take learnings from around the world and to build a better ecosystem to help women founders thrive.
Thanks so much for that, Wendy. It is fascinating to hear where you see the opportunities, and there's lots of evidence of that in Australia and Indonesia. I'm sure Mary Ruth, for instance, would be interested to hear that the emerging market in speech pathology, for instance, is a growing and rapid one, including in Indonesia. Thanks so much, Wendy. It's all led us into the next session, which I just want to thank the panelists for their initial presentations and responses to questions. We've got a lot of interesting and challenging Q&A to come up after the next
Okay, Amanda, before we continue to our Q&A session from the audience, there is one urgent thing that we need to do, which is the mandatory group photo. So may I kindly ask all the speakers to turn on their video? All right. Ready, everyone? So 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more time, which is more like a freestyle, if you like. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I hope the operators take a lot of pictures. Thank you. Now let's go to our Q&A session.
I might just add, if we get a chance, we'll come back and make sure Wendy gets into that photo shoot, which I'm not sure if all the panelists know. It's an important Indonesian thing to make sure we get a group shots. Or Zoom
one more time, if you want.
Yeah. When the production lets us know that we're ready to go, we'll do one more shot before we conclude. Thanks, everyone. We've got some great Q&A coming in, so let's launch into it. Rian, did you want to ask the first question to Kenneth?
Yes, I have 2 questions for Kenneth. The first is there is this one participant from the chat box that are really eager to look for your expansion to probably outside Jakarta and Tangerang, because as you rightly said, Pak Kenneth, some of the childcare center or really basic education system in Indonesia are still focusing very much on the Calistung or read and counting or math, while your approach is very much different. So there is one participant that wants to hear your business plan actually in the future in terms of expansion. And the second one is related on that, which is also the presence of the Nurture One in Indonesia. So this anonymous participant asking about standardization. So what kind of regulatory compliance that you need to comply with? Is it more like regional government standards or central government? What about the teacher standard and stuff like that? And how do you respond on the presence of private sector childcare industry to the growing inequality in the society, at least the sense of growing inequality in the community? Will the presence of childcare, private childcare, exacerbate that, or kind of actually can reduce that because of the women participation in the labor market? How do you respond to that? I know this is a very difficult question, but I hope I hope that this can stimulate our discussion further. Thank you. Over to you, Pak Kenneth.
Okay, so maybe I'll try answer the last one first. So to my knowledge, since the ECEC market is huge and definitely growing, there are childcare services across both economic spectrum. So I knew childcare centers that offer childcare services from few 100,000 rupiah up to even 5 million rupiah, and some even more than 5 million because they're catering to the foreigners working in Indonesia. So to my knowledge, the existence of ECEC market, especially in the lower spectrum of in the lower economic spectrum, where there are many of them are situated near factories, heavily populated areas where there are lots of offices and workers from the lower income families. It helps them for both of the parents to be able to work. So I think it will greatly help their economic situations because of the presence of these childcare services. And then the second questions about the government regulation. So from my experience, the first step is to get the what do you call it? It's izin operasional. So it is the government permit
kind of
to start childcare. And then after that, the government will contact you for accreditation. And coincidentally, I will have my accreditation in 2 days' time. So I'll let you know after the accreditation process is done. So the first one about my business plan, since we started in 2021, and it has only been 3 years. So our plan right now is to expand more on Jakarta and also in Tangerang areas. And we try to avoid areas that are very very populated in terms of childcare providers. So I know that areas like in central Jakarta, in Menteng, in SCBD, in Sudirman, we have lots of good childcare services there. And I don't think there's a need for us as Nurture One to expand there. We are focusing more on areas that we know are lacking in good childcare services. And we know that there are lots of dual income households, and we try to cater to this community. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Pak. Over to you, Amanda.
Thanks so much. Really interesting to hear, including your expansion plans, Kenneth, which we all look forward to watching. There's a couple of other questions. One's directed to me, which I might quickly respond to, but also put to the panel. The first question in the chat is really around research on childcare franchises in Australia. And I should be clear that Catalyst isn't necessarily recommending any prescriptive or particular model for ECEC sector trade and investment. Rather, it's really opening up the discussion and really leading the way in looking at and exploring what opportunities exist. But there isn't necessarily just one model that's going to be the right fit. And I certainly acknowledge, I think it was from Margaret Shaw, the question around, is the franchise model really the right one to pursue? Because there is no doubt the history of childcare market development in Australia isn't necessarily a smooth one. There have been many bumps along the road, including for franchise models and including for a range of policy and regulatory issues, to the point that to this day, whilst it's a really established high quality service, it continues to be the subject of extensive reviews, the extensive evaluation and continuous funding and reform. So there is no one perfect model, and certainly Catalyst isn't necessarily recommending one, but it really it sees the opportunity and it wants to make sure businesses and government are all part of that conversation, and communities and families. So hopefully that responds a little bit to the first question. But the second question in the chat is sort of related, and it goes to that question around Indonesia being quite a unique and different market where culturally there is a huge and important and valuable role for women and family members to provide care. There is no doubt that is going to be part of the future of Indonesia's childcare sector and care economy, and a critical and important one. And I don't think anyone's suggesting that the future of ECEC in Indonesia will not include that huge and important and valuable caring workforce. I think what we're suggesting is within that huge market, there are many, many opportunities for a range of different providers. So on that, I might go to Wendy for your views on what's the future of the childcare market could potentially look like, having heard this conversation and some of the questions and concerns expressed around, is it the franchise model or will there be major constraints on the market? Perhaps, Wendy, you've got some views on this.
Hi, yeah, I do actually. So I guess, yeah, what were you just alluding to there on the franchise model? I mean, we obviously had a previous large operator that had to come in Australia and be saved by 4 non-for-profits, and now that is now Good Star. Look, I think there's obviously the benefits to both. It's really coming down to, in Australia right now, financial viability. With the high quality of delivering, the high cost of wages, it is a hard model to run as an individual business, and we're seeing a number of those smaller ones close down. But we're also seeing on the other end, the larger businesses struggle somewhat as well, and getting equitable profitability across the whole franchise model is also very difficult. So I see what I see really sort of as a future is collaboration between government and the industry itself, and that way we can build and provide more childcare places both here and in Indonesia, but it would have to be done in a way that the costs are absorbed somewhat, especially for the workers at the lower ending of the wage sector.
And maybe just to pass that similar question, Mary Ruth, I don't know if you have views on the future outlook of the markets and experiences of Australia's early learning sector developments that need to be drawn out and understood in the Indonesian context.
Oh, I do, but from a different lens. When we talk about early childcare and education, I think we need to put the word quality in there. So quite often there are competing objectives of parents who want their children ready to go to school and see preschool, prior to school years, as being really important years in preparing their children with some expert educators who know how to do that and have their children ready to go to school and flourish. The other competing side of it is those who need, care for their children because they need somebody to look after their children whilst they are in the workforce. So what sits in the middle there is a quality workforce that in the early education and care sector that can actually, yes, care and provide safe surroundings for children that enriches them, but also actually provides really quality pathways for children's development so that families who not unreasonably have an expectation that their children will be receiving some of that expertise, but also nations who really want children to be having really strong formative years so they can go on and do well in education to actually take their place and become income earners and wage earners for the nation. And so we've got a lot of competing priorities sitting there. And of course, as Wendy is saying, it sits around also just affordability of being able to provide that. So I think, like Wendy is saying, there is a combination between government involvement and also the private sector and maybe public sector in Australia and New South Wales. Many of the public schools now are having a preschool space on the school grounds. And so, you know, we still haven't really sorted it out here, but I do think there's a lot of competition for what is quality, and quite often that word is left out and it just becomes a service that's provided, and that's not good enough. So somewhere in between, there's a happy medium that's going to suit everybody, and particularly the children's needs.
Thank you, Mary Ruth, for the answer. The next question is directed to anyone in the panel, but I think probably Mary Ruth also can jump in because she's been working in the system, in Australian system. So given that all educators and teachers need to be certified, especially by ACE-CEPA, what recommendation do you have for Indonesian educators to facilitate their certification process? Are there any suggested or recommended adaptation or standardization for early childhood education teachers in Indonesia to align more closely with those in Australia?
I can jump in here
Yeah,
first.
please.
So yes, there is a requirement for teachers to have a qualification, and then there's levels of qualifications that teachers, educators, we call them, to work through. However, one of the things, because of the wage issue for early years educators, it's quite a low pay range. And so it attracts people who love children, want to do the best for children, but may not be very confident in getting extra education for themselves, and may not have even had very good education experiences themselves. So what we're finding is that a lot of the educators, whilst there's a requirement for them to be in some type of training program, they're not wanting to participate. And so what they will do is move from one site to the other when the pressure becomes builds up on them to actually go and participate in qualifications. They'll go and change employment and go to the next early learning service. And so there's a real issue about how to support people to do that training and that quality improvement in the workforce that really addresses the needs of the very people who are in that workforce. And it's a conundrum. So, you know, yes, that's an aspiration. No, Australia isn't always reaching that aspiration of having a really, you know, professional learning programs for a really advanced ECEC workforce. And in Indonesia, I would suggest that the way that we work, which is training and modeling a lot of, you know, mentorship that goes on, is the way to go. And that's something that's being looked at here in Australia as being really positive, is the way ALNF is contributing to that sector. So I'll pass over to somebody else.
Thanks so much, Mary Ruth. I might pass then on the same workforce question, because given Kenneth's had experience of having to actually deliver and recruit a workforce at Nurture One, Kenneth, really keen to hear how you manage the quality requirements to meet your workforce needs.
So we actually we divide our workforce into two parts. One is the caregiving part, and the other one is the quote unquote teaching part. So for the teaching part, we focus more on people with education background, maybe bachelor or even master degree in childhood education or in education in general. And then the caring part, we focus more on people, not on their educational background, because I believe that it can be developed with trainings and mentorship programs, but we focus more on their ability to deliver care quality. So we look more on their experience, whether they have experience with children, how do they give care to children. For example, do they know how to do this process of helping children to do toileting, or do they know how to help children to learn how to eat by themselves? this kind of stuff. These are the things that we're looking for in the caring part of our workforce.
Thanks so much, Kenneth. It's really interesting to hear how you manage meeting the workforce needs, which we know is a major challenge in both Australia and Indonesia. I did want to flag here that Catalyst itself does a lot of work in skills and training and looking at the opportunities to develop both micro-credentials, broader credentials, and ensure that workforce training meets needs that are complementary in both Indonesia and Australia are being met. So I can only encourage everyone to look at the Catalyst website and looking at opportunities for skills and training and exchange in ECEC is clearly an area for further work and somewhere that Catalyst is already working in terms of the broader skills and training opportunities between Australia and Indonesia. I did want to ask a question next to Theodore. It's actually a question that Friska asks in the chat, directed at Kenneth, but I also think that it's something that in relation to your product market and trade that you may be able to provide some guidance on. It's a question around childcare is really often taken up in Indonesia by higher income families at the moment. And we are really keen to ensure that all children have access to quality early learning and education. It's probably dissimilar to a product market, but given you're actually marketing a product for children, how do you ensure in Indonesia that you actually reach a range of demographics? So are there any lessons you can share on Cetaphil that might actually be relevant?
Sorry, a little bit delay for your a little bit delay, Amanda, in here. May I ask for the question again?
Sorry if I'm breaking up to everyone. Are there any lessons on marketing of your products that could be relevant to the desire for ECEC to reach not just high income purchases of products and services, but to reach a broader market that you've learned?
Okay. For products, maybe it's a little bit different with the services, Amanda, I can say. So with the product itself, what we can relate to the services in the market. So we know that product and services, like I said before, there are some services or product that become the trendsetter. You can use any curriculum, any for benchmarking. So yes, there are trendsetters, especially same with the product and also the services, but there's also like the followers. So yes, I can say that I can choose this kind of curriculum and then I can duplicate it. So, but the exact things that I can say that the USP that I have mentioned before, what is your unique selling proposition for your service, for your products? So your unique selling proposition is when you it becomes your like identity. So when it comes to brand or products, it's your identity. What is your unique selling proposition? For example, so many people use this product to claim their products to claim like this is suitable for sensitive skin. For example, this is for example for my experience. This also many claims that claims that this is suitable for sensitive skin. This is fit with for your sensitive skin. But then, what is your unique selling proposition? Are you dermatologist tested or are you dermatologist recommended, for example, like that? So when I can say that it comes to your service, it comes to your products, you should make your own identity by having unique selling proposition for your service or your product. That's what I can say for the long term.
Thank you, Ibu Firda. Let me ask a question to Ibu Samantha. How do you think the sector is going to evolve in the next decade? Particularly, what advice that you can give to the potential ECEC businesses or players that looking to invest in Indonesia or operate in this market?
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mas Randy, for the question. So maybe just to briefly explain about the challenges in Indonesia and also the opportunities. Although there are some limitation of the child care, but I think the government in Indonesia already supported this daycare. Even there is this new law or regulations that requires all of the office buildings to have daycare in the building. Also, for the state-owned SOE, state-owned enterprise, there is also regulations that require them to have their own daycare. So it's already started from the government, and it will be continued by the private sectors as well. So for this one, I think, and also with the rising awareness of the importance of early child ECEC, like early childhood educations, also the rising middle income, we believe that this sector can grow because it's the child, right? So it's really important to our life, and it really can affect the performance of the children in the future as well, like as a human nature. And I think for the tips and tricks, as we all see, the demands are there, and also the business models are, like, the demands are there, and we still need to supply. So as long as they have or build the businesses that like a product market fit, and then it can scalable fast, like they can grow fast. So it's the opportunity. Actually, it's a really great opportunity for investment.
Thanks so much, Samantha. We're out of time, but I wanted to quickly just acknowledge that the discussion today does reveal that there are a range of areas for further exploration, and they're not all purely trade or purely business. There's a range of lessons and experience, as well as evidence to share on the developments of ECEC markets. And the development program is often really well focused on sharing those lessons. What Catalyst is also trying to do is to reveal that there are also business, private sector and trade opportunities within the emergence of those markets, which do require sound regulation to ensure the quality and accessibility that everybody is seeking. So with that, we really appreciate all of the input that we've heard from everyone today. And I think we've revealed that there is a range of emerging opportunities that are happening, and there's some fascinating tools like LD and others, investment opportunities that are available for this sector. So we hope everyone will continue to watch this space and engage with Catalyst to explore the care economy and ECEC sector development further. Over to you, Riyandi, to wrap up the session.
All right, Amanda, because Wendy already joined with us, so we take one more group photo, because before Ibu Wendy is not with us. So, yep, okay, we have all of us now. All right, counting by 3. 1, 2, 3, and then counting backwards, and then freestyle. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, okay, one more time because it's closing. All right. Again, hoping that the operators take a lot of picture of us. So thank you very much for everyone tuning in to this webinar. This question and answer has been wrapped up, and this concludes our session for today. Thank you to all our wonderful speakers and my co-host Amanda for your excellent participation today and giving your valuable time to us. Thanks also for everyone that already listening and provide insightful comment and question. We will let you know the details through our mailing list, so please make sure you have joined our mailing list. You will also find a short paper that provides an excellent overview of the healthcare trends and opportunities in our website, and also the broader care economy. And as mentioned earlier, today's session is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube with a link provided on the Catalyst website and in our social media. So please look for those and share with others who are interested. For more information, please visit Catalyst website, IA-CEPA-catalyst.org, and our Instagram, our Twitter or X now, and Facebook and YouTube channel. Take care, and we look forward to seeing you at our webinar in other topic. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Mukti Prasetyani Suyahmun. I'm a lead advisor for market access at Catalyst.
Hi, I'm Keiko Novatska. I'm a gender development specialist at the Asian Development Bank.
Hello, I'm Paul Bartlett, and I'm the director of Catalyst.
Abang tunjuk handuk, tunjuk sabun. Mana gambarnya? Pinter.
Kegiatan kami dimulai pada tahun 2012 yang berawal dari sebuah keprihatinan secara pribadi untuk melihat anak-anak berkebutuhan khusus yang telah mendapatkan berbagai jenis intervensi, akan tetapi kemudian mereka mengalami kesulitan untuk melanjutkan ke jenjang pendidikan. Kami ingin menyediakan kesempatan bagi anak-anak berkebutuhan khusus untuk mendapatkan wadah mereka untuk belajar, memastikan bahwa hak mereka untuk belajar bisa terpenuhi sesuai dengan kebutuhannya. Apakah Bu Holi bisa ceritakan kepada kami apa yang menjadi latar belakang Bu Holi sehingga akhirnya Bu Holi ingin terjun sebagai inclusion advisor?
Thank you for asking me that. You know, my own mother suffered from hearing loss until she found the right hearing aid. And I witnessed firsthand how lives are changed with access to the right assistive technology. And in my line of work as a gender and social inclusion advisor, I believe what matters the most is the action we take.
Okay.
You know, when I first started exploring this topic from a bilateral trade angle between Indonesia and Australia, I quickly learned how timely and important it is to address the issues of availability and affordability of assistive technology. As you know, prices in Indonesia are much higher when compared to other Southeast Asian countries and even Australia. At Catalyst, we work hard to prove how increasing bilateral trade can contribute to closing the gap in assistive technology needs and shortages in medical professionals such as yourself, who can prescribe and fit assistive technology. We believe that commercial, innovative partnerships like the one being forged by Australian company Cochlear and Indonesian companies Kasum Group and Mitra Keluarga Kelapa Gading, and many more to come, are key to ensuring access to millions of Indonesians with disability and key to ensuring their access to assistive technology for millions of Indonesians with disability and unlocking their full potential.
Jadi kalau kita bicara tentang inklusivitas, kita perlu memastikan ketersediaan teknologi yang tepat untuk mendukung para individu dengan disabilitas tentunya. Nah, kenapa saya senang sekali pada waktu Katalis mengundang juga untuk berdiskusi pada bulan Februari yang lalu, dan di situ saya juga berbagi pengalaman saya baik itu di klinik Lidfood maupun di sekolah padi tentang berbagai kondisi dengan anak-anak dengan berbagai kondisi disabilitas.
Ibu Rini, thank you so much for having us here. Could you tell me a little bit about your vision for the future? What's next for Sekolah Padi?
Baik, jadi seperti visi yang kami miliki di Sekolah Padi, kami ingin menjadi institusi pendidikan bagi anak berkebutuhan khusus yang tentunya unggul secara kualitas bagi mereka untuk belajar, dibantu, dididik menjadi individu-individu yang mandiri kelak di kemudian hari. Tentu disertai dengan sarana belajar yang cukup baik, kemudian dengan teknologi yang handal, mumpuni, sehingga proses belajar dapat berlangsung secara efisien, kemudian tujuan dari pembelajaran juga dapat tercapai secara lebih optimal.
Wow, thank you. Inclusion is clearly the future. Terima kasih, Ibu Rini. Thank you so much for welcoming us to Sekolah Padi today. It's been a pleasure to meet you and your wonderful students. Thank you.